Hello and welcome back to the Redhead Podcast. It's been a minute, y'all. I know. Honestly, when I started making this podcast, I was really excited and didn't have the best plan. So I lost track of things and kind of lost interest, but I am back and so excited to be here. First of all, I want to shout out a friend of mine, a fellow podcaster. Their podcast is called the Enby. I will link all of their socials below. They discuss their various identities, being trans and non-binary, and also having been diagnosed with ADHD. They've been so inspiring and are part of the reason I am back, so I encourage you to go check out their content whether you share those identities or not. I know we can all grow from learning more about those like us, but also those who are different. With that being said, I am really excited to be back here. A big part of that is during this quarantine, I've had a lot of time to work on myself. And I truly believe one of the reasons I was put on this earth is to help people and share my knowledge and experiences. And I feel that this platform is a great way to do just that. I'm here to hopefully have some important conversations about things that resonate with and affect all of us. I'm going to be honest and open and share with you all what I've learned and what I still need to learn. As our first episode back, I really wanted to reintroduce myself, but also recognize that the first time around, I don't know if I even really introduced myself as much as I probably could have. I've gone through a lot and I've dealt with a lot, and this informs my opinions and my overall worldview. And I wanted to reflect on that before we start getting into these possibly deep conversations. With that being said, I really want to describe the why and the how. So what I mean by that is why I'm here and kind of how I got here. So I know I briefly mentioned I have done some self-work and personal development during the time of the pandemic. And I spent a lot of that time alone and trying to use that time as effectively as I can. Just to share with you all, I personally deal with depression and anxiety and what I believe to be PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which is related to some of the traumas that I've experienced in my childhood. With that, I'm also, currently overweight, and I've honestly really always been overweight, and I'm trying to work on my health journey, both mentally and physically, and I've been doing the work on that too, and it's been slow, and I've fallen back and made missteps. But it's been an everyday kind of thing, and I will just say that I've learned a lot about myself in this time, and I do want to share with you how I'm able to heal, how I'm able to learn and grow, because while I definitely have been more focused on this during quarantine, I have certainly been doing this for a long time, and I've built some skills around that. I will also say, before I go into some more detailed explanation of my healing, there is no judgment, and I don't want to cause any feelings of pressure or any weirdness for those of you who have not been able to take the time in quarantine to do this work. We all have our entire lives to work on all of the issues and traumas we might have, and, develop our strengths and weaknesses. And this time really worked for me. It felt like it was that was its purpose for me. But I know that there is a lot of pressure online to really take this time to work on yourself and come out of it the best version of you and lose the weight and all this stuff. And I know I've even felt that. And it's okay if you've just been trying to get by, trying to wake up every morning. That's okay. It's all okay. It's been a lot on all of us. And some of us have had our employment or financial situations impacted, just going through a lot of stress. Family members get sick, not seeing friends and family is really, really hard for our mental health and all of that. So I just don't want to make anyone feel bad about the lack of personal development they may have been involved in, because again, we're on our own journeys and we need to take a day at a time, a moment at a time. This is what has worked for me, but if you are in the beginning of your healing journey, that is okay. That is more than okay. I do want to start by saying I've referenced some mental health issues that I deal with, and I will always recommend therapy, but I used teletherapy for a while because that was what worked best for me. And I got to the point where the beginning of the pandemic, I was just feeling unsatisfied with the care I was receiving, and I decided for myself to stop kind of wasting money for not getting that much help. But I do want to get back to into therapy, and I'm going on my own schedule, my own pace with all of that. And so I will just reiterate that, therapy is super important, but also finding the right therapist can be difficult, and it really is important, but certainly a privilege to receive that care. So I just want to recognize all of that. So again, to detail some of the work I have done, both on my own and through therapy, I first really did have to look at the roots of my trauma. So I'm currently at a place where I'm not currently at a place where I feel completely healed from all that. I'm definitely, not healed by any means, but I have a better idea of how some of the problems I have today are related to my childhood and some of the things I've experienced. And that's just been really important to kind of figure all that out. With that being said, I have spent a lot of time thinking and talking with myself about how I feel about relationships and myself, my own worth, and, my relationship with food and all of these things. And I will say I'm really at a point where I can say I do have self-love and I practice self-love. And I think more than anything, when I prioritize, what I prioritize is making sure my relationship with myself is good first. And then I'm more able to respond in a more healthy way to friends and significant others and even other family members, because I have my own support first. I know this might not function this way for other people, but the song Me, Myself, and I is very, very relatable. Basically, all I have is me, myself, and I have to be okay with just that first. And basically, all the other support I get is cherries on top of the self-love I have with me. I will also say I've been single for, pretty much most of my life. I've never really had serious relationships, and so I've never really built my identity around someone or really had that continued support other than friends. And friends come and go too, don't they? So I've also really been working on motivation, specifically internal motivation, and I've gotten, I've made some progress in some areas more than others, but I really do think of it as rewiring my brain, and it's kind of a psychology term, but kind of building these new routines that help me be motivated, and things just become to feel more attainable as part of my day, as it's part of my developed routine. Again, still a work in progress in this area, but it's been a little bit more helpful. So I just want to find a routine that promotes self-care and promotes a healthy relationship with my body and my mind. And I will say that while, like I said, I've worked on these things, but I'm still a work in progress, and there's a lot of areas I haven't been able to work on as much as I would have liked to. I think of spirituality. It's always one of those things where I just want to spend time doing that work, but I just never feel like I get to it. I sometimes have moments where I'll do a prayer or stuff like that, but not to go into too much detail, I don't follow a mainstream religion, so for me it's kind of figuring out what my religion looks like, what practicing looks like for me, and that is a really difficult journey, and something I'm not very far on, if I'm being honest. And physical health is definitely something that I have not worked on as much as I would like to, even just from working out, but also things like, stretching often, and kind of massaging my body. I'm really into facial massages. It's really good for getting blood flow and new cell development and stuff like that. So I want to do that more regularly, and I just haven't. It hasn't been my number one priority. So to kind of talk about a little bit more about, why I'm here and why I am choosing to be on this platform, is really just because I wanted to create a space that I feel like I can help people. As mentioned, I really find purpose in helping people, and I really want to share my experiences and share some of the advice I have and just my perspective on some issues. And some of the issues that I cover across these episodes, I definitely am no expert. And with that being said, I just want to share that these are my personal opinions and not those of any professional capacity. Because I am currently studying social work in an undergraduate program and will be in the fall joining a grad school program for social work. And this does definitely inform my opinion because I have all these theories and just understand kind of how the mind works a little bit, especially because I've studied sociology and psychology. But I'm really not speaking as a social worker. I'm purely speaking as a person who's lived a life and has gone through some things. And so that's where I'm coming from. And I just want to say that I'm not speaking in a professional capacity. I'm not, a therapist having a podcast. I just am a student, but also have gone through some stuff and I've learned a lot from that. That being said, I do feel that I'm a social worker in all of my identities, and I love helping out my friends with things that they're going through and being that shoulder to cry on and that support, and it honestly brings me joy. And while it can be hard sometimes and really stressful, being that support for my friends really does feel fulfilling, and and it fulfills my spirit. And this podcast is a passion project of mine, and that is always why I will be here, to share advice and to bring awareness to some topics that I feel may not be talked about enough, or not talked about in the way I wish they were. With that said, take what's helpful and throw away anything that is not. I am not speaking with expertise. I am just sharing what works for me and what I've noticed. And if it doesn't apply or help you, that is totally fine. I do not come to the space kind of assuming I'm right or anything like that. I really believe that we all have our own opinions and perspectives, and disagreements are welcome. While this space is available for and open to everyone, you may not feel that this space is for you, and that is more than okay. I'm here for you though, so please feel free to suggest future topics or ask questions via any of our platforms or social media profiles. I will do my best to respond and address anything as it may come up, especially if someone brings something up that might be a future podcast episode topic, or just I feel that I have space here to address it, or I will address it in those private spaces as well. I just want to take a minute to recognize and thank a sponsor of the podcast. Anchor is the platform that I currently use to edit and create my podcast, and it has been so great and user-friendly. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. First of all, it's free. What more could you ask for? There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. So, 2 weeks from the day this podcast is released, so Thursday I believe it's the 18th of March. Yep. Our next episode, we will be talking about friendships. So as someone who has always relied on my friends and recently experienced the devastating heartbreak of losing them, it would be kind of disingenuous to not prioritize talking all about friendships as my first conversation back. I always will say we do not talk about friend breakups nearly enough. So we'll be talking about how to make friends, what makes friendships healthy versus unhealthy, and even how to deal with the end of friendships, as hard as it may be. If this is something you would be interested in, definitely stay tuned and make sure to keep up with the podcast to hear what future topics will be. I'm excited. I have some good ideas. So definitely stay tuned. So a segment I want to start doing each week is Song of the Week or Song of the Episode. So often these songs might kind of correlate with the topic. This one obviously is more of an introductory episode, so it's more of just a song that came out recently and resonates with me. I will say I already have my song selected for next week with friendships that I've used to get through my hardest times. But for this week, the song is by the artist, or the group, I guess, Allie and AJ. So a lot of you probably know Allie and AJ from their Disney fame, but two sisters, and they have been kind of making music across this time. I haven't been a fan of all of it, but they really recently released a song called Pretty Places, and I love the video, I love the message. And so a quote from the chorus, or I guess a lyric from the chorus of the song is, "All the pretty places pull us away from where the pain is. These open skies leaving the past behind." So the reason that really resonated with me is because I often feel that sometimes when I'm like either trapped inside or maybe I don't feel like my environment is very like pretty in the most simple way to say. I'm living in a city that's not the most pretty place, to say the least. I'm actually moving to Colorado for school next year, and I just know that being in a beautiful place will uplift me. And I think sometimes it's just really important to recognize that sometimes changing your environment, taking that vacation, surrounding yourself with beauty is really important to kind of ground you, but also just to remind you that there's beauty in the world and all the darkness we may be facing. Like, there's so much beauty, and the world we live in can be such a beautiful place. And as they detail, these pretty places can pull us away from where the pain is. And I think it's just really important sentiment and definitely a good grounding technique. I will also share, as I'm literally looking on the back of my laptop, I have a quote from Albert Einstein on the back, a little sticker, and it says, "Look deep into nature, you will understand everything better." So look deep into nature, you will understand everything better. So my perspective on that quote is really just that sometimes, again, that grounding of nature, I think sometimes things just are put into perspective when we kind of step out of our lives, the chaos and all of that, and really noting kind of the thoughts that come up. It kind of reminds me of meditation, and obviously nature can be quite meditative, but oftentimes when you're doing meditation, sometimes you just kind of think about what thoughts are coming up, and you just kind of take note of that. And I think it can be really important to step into nature, step into these like pretty places, and really step outside of all the chaos and all the pressures of life and all the deadlines, and see what you're feeling, and where you're at a more deep level. But sometimes you may need that escape too. So sometimes you need to go on a vacation and not think about anything. You don't want to think about your job and all that stuff, but you also don't want to think about your pain and your trauma and your ex, or something that just ended in your life that you're not a fan of. So that's the song for the week. I hope that you will go listen to it. Obviously, if it's not your vibe, that's totally fine, but maybe this sentiment and lyric resonated with you, brought something up for you. Find a pretty place. Treat yourself. Go take a nice drive. Go take a nice walk in your neighborhood. Go to that park you love. Find a pretty place. Enjoy the pretty place. So that kind of brings us to the end of the episode. This is definitely a little bit shorter of an episode just because I wanted to do a simple reintroduction and kind of get back into things, but just quickly to plug our socials. So on Instagram and Twitter, it's Redhead Pod. We have platforms on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. You will find our episodes on those sites, and those will also be linked through our Instagram and Twitter as kind of our hubs. So definitely feel free to follow those platforms to stay updated or subscribe to our podcast wherever you are watching it. I just want to thank you all for tuning in and rejoining this community. I am so excited to be back and so excited to have new content coming out, and I hope some of you are looking forward to the friendship episode next week, in 2 weeks, I should say. I think it's going to be a really good one, and one that's going to be healing for me too as I record and as I think through some of my own experiences. I'm excited for it. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you soon enough with our next podcast episode. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening.